Seattle's housing market is considered one of the most expensive in the country. Buying a home can seem impossible, and for some requires financial help from others. One option, joint tenancy or tenancy-in-common. It's becoming a more popular trend in certain areas of Seattle, and here to break it all down and what this even is, along with the pros and cons, is the owner and founder of RexMont Real Estate, Adriano Tori. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
This is so awesome. I mean, I've heard of like the idea when I looked it up, but had never heard of the exact term. So for someone that hasn't, what is this?
Sure. Tenancy-in-common is becoming more and more popular in Seattle urban areas such as North Seattle, also West Seattle, and South King County. The other part too is that in this tenancy-in-common arrangement, there is an arrangement where two or more people jointly own a property. And this is potentially becoming a solution to the issues that we're facing with housing affordability in today's market.
Yes. And I imagine, though, there's some pros and cons, because I have had a friend do this, and so I know some of the cons, but what are the pros?
So let's talk about the pros. So as far as being involved in this kind of arrangement, so it makes housing affordability more accessible, where you have a family member, you could have a friend, you could have even colleagues, from your employer or for the employment, come together to join property, put resources together. Another pro on this is that it helps distribute the financial burden, making a viable option for people facing challenges in the housing market. And as far as the cons are concerned, so this comes with there are certain responsibilities that come, right? As people come together and each of these owners have a share in the property, sometimes it might not be as clear, if the people involved don't have the financial literacy as to who may be responsible for maintenance around the house.
True. How do you figure out, like, you need to fix that fence?
Exactly. Or even if we go away from some time, who is responsible to take care of the property? Right? And so those may be things that we'll need to factor in, and it's important for someone who is considering this type of arrangement to be able to know all of these factors before opting into a tenancy-in-common arrangement.
Definitely. And I feel like the pros too, obviously, you're sharing electricity, you're sharing maybe HOA fees, but then, pros of maybe your relationship goes south with a family member or something you want to sell. It could get maybe a little dicey. So do you recommend maybe bringing in a real estate agent, to talk you through this before, or anyone else?
Somebody who is seasoned, who actually understands the in and outs of this type of arrangement. That's one. An attorney also who specializes in this type of arrangement could come handy as well. And also, you mentioned something that is very key and important, and that is that if someone, let's say, people come together and for whatever reason that person plans have changed and they no longer have a need to live in the house, they might sell their share, and the person who are left behind, or the people who are left behind, they don't have a say as to who may or may not buy the share from the person who co-owns with them. So that could be another potential con that we have to be aware of.
Definitely. And how is the, housing market and everything in Seattle right now? I mean, it's probably a good time maybe for some people to look into something like this.
Exactly. Right now, the market is very intense. Multiple offers have started to come back into the market. The average days of a property in the market right now in Greater Seattle is about 21 days, though in areas such as Bellevue, Kirkland, Redmond, we're seeing average days on the market being at 8 days. And so it's very important more than ever to be able to have a clear budget and sticking to that budget, because in a competitive market, it's very easy to get caught up in bidding wars, and having that budget makes all the difference. And the other part too is that as the market is becoming more competitive, we have to make sure that we act swiftly as long as we have done our homework and we feel right about the decision to act swiftly, because losing out to another buyer might potentially mean into waiting another 3 weeks or 3 months. And we've seen the interest rates fluctuating quite frequently, and so making sure that we're making the necessary arrangements to be able to break into the homeownership as long as we are able to determine the budget.
I love it. That's such sage advice. Is there anyone with this tenancy-in-common program that you would definitely recommend maybe not for them? Is there anyone that you can think of?
Sure. So if we have this mindset of potentially being a short-term solution, this may not be a good fit or being in alignment to a housing, a housing option, mainly because there are costs associated, like upfront costs associated with purchasing within this type of arrangement. Plus, the also, if we were to sell, if somebody were to sell their share, it might not be as easy to get someone interested in taking that over. So that's someone who has a short-term perspective. Likely, if you're in college, you just graduated from college and you're looking to relocate, this might not be the perfect arrangement, or likely somebody who is looking into retirement years might not be a perfect arrangement.
I mean, that makes perfect sense. And are there, any stories, I guess, you can think of off the top of your head of an example of, a great pro and, example of this that really worked, or a con that you can think of off the top of your head?
Yes, for sure. So on the circumstances or the transactions that we've been part of, we've seen that this works very, very well when it comes to people that have known each other for some time.
Okay, like family, maybe.
Family,
okay.
Correct, or even colleagues, like that have worked within their team, for X amount of years. So this could work out very well. As we are aware, a lot of people were working remotely during the pandemic, and now a lot of the employers are requiring people to come to the office 2 to 3 times a week. And so, coming to the office and having a secondary place to live, at least 2 to 3 days a week with a colleague might come, very handy as well. So that's a type of arrangement that we've seen working very effectively as of now, to be able to curtail the fact that we're getting into a very competitive market, and on the other hand as well, as we're seeing less inventory, less options out there, because people are not as incentivized to sell properties or putting them on the market. We're seeing that these arrangements are making an impact for someone who have this arrangement of getting to know each other for some time.
Wow, this is all so interesting and something to definitely think about in this market. Thank you for taking the time for being here today.
Thank you for having me over.